Will, we're just jumping right into this. We are helping this company, which is a CPG B2B. They license technology to businesses in the CPG space. I'm going to argue that they're a seed, but at the same time, you could consider, curious your thoughts on this in just a moment. We could consider hitting investors up for a pre-seed round just to, get things going. We'll talk about what that looks like. And we're going to help this startup raise $1 million. We're going to do the whole fundraise. But Will, before we jump into that, I want to welcome everybody. If you are in the audience, make sure you use the Q&A box. We have Jen lurking in the chat. Let us know if you have questions. We want to give you the answers, as well as if you're watching this on YouTube, do the YouTube thing, like, comment, subscribe. Always extremely helpful. But at the same time, you have an opportunity to try these tools for free. We're going to put all the links everywhere, just making it worth your while. Thanks for spending the time with us. Will, you are a nine-times founder. You've exited 5 startups, so you've been around.
Yep.
And you set your mind to create this tool, totally AI-driven, to help founders raise capital 10x faster, automating everything. Walk us through your mindset. Why? Why create this monster?
I've been trying to build this for 20 years, Ed. And I've tried to build it over so many different whole companies. Even midway, we launched a company called Fundable.com. That's part of our platform in 2012. Ed, that was 13 years ago. And even back then, I was like, we have got to find a way to make it easier to find investors, to be able to automate your fundraise online, etc. But so many things didn't exist yet. Here's what happened. Here's what kept happening over and over. People would come to us, Ed, people come to us all the time right now, and they say, hey, I want to raise money. What do I do?
Right.
And we explain it to them every single time. We're like, you have to take where you're at right now. You have to figure out who the right investors are. You have to go out and compose custom emails to all those investors. And then of course you have to, execute your sends. And here's what happens every time. And I'm curious, your experience, Ed. They get into the research oh, this is really complicated, or I don't exactly know who I'm looking for. Or I don't know how to evaluate who I'm looking for. And even if they do, they then go and they write these emails, and we see the emails, and they're terrifying, right? And it's nobody's fault. Everybody's trying to use their best efforts. They just haven't done this before. Why would you?
Sure.
And they end up creating this monstrosity email. And then the worst thing they do is they carpet bomb every single investor with the same message, like a giant BCC. They take an Excel doc and they just drop everything in there, bomb everybody. It works never. Most of the time they're wrapped up in everybody's spam filters. They never even got there. And the whole process is a nightmare. And so most people bow out. Most people never raise capital because the process is such a giant pain in the ass. They just give up. What's your experience?
Exactly the same as you, but I've experienced it firsthand. I know you've experienced it firsthand, but then I've sat on the investor side of the table and I'm getting hit by all these terrible emails. They're totally wide. They haven't researched us.
Yep.
Falls totally out of our investment thesis. And it's crazy making, especially because now there's online directories, social media. There's more access to information ever before. So there's more confusion. There's more noise than ever before. So I'm tracking right there with you.
3 problems that have been plaguing me since I was a founder raising, and then obviously we've helped, countless founders raise on our platform. 3 problems that have been plaguing me. The first one is, like I said, nobody knows who to look for. For example, like when you're out there, let's say you go to Crunchbase, which is great, or look for other sources, and you're like, well, I think it's a pre-seed deal, but I'm raising 700,000. Maybe that's not pre-seed, right? Or I think it's B2B, but it's also e-commerce, but it's also this. Well, who should I be looking for? Or then you find the person that you think fits those categories, and there's 14 people listed at that firm. And you're like, okay, who do I even reach out to? Invariably, you reach out to the wrong person. Pro tip, it's not the general partner.
Never.
It's the last person that wants to talk to you. I want the decision maker, but the decision maker does not want you. And so, not knowing who to talk to or who even opens their emails at that firm is a huge pain. And that's just the first part. Like I said, the second part, when I go to write these emails, the absolute right way to do it is going to be to custom write an email for every single investor that's very specific to either deals they've done or industries they're in, et cetera. It is a giant pain in the ass. I'll be honest, I've raised capital from an awful lot of people. I've never done that, right? You write 3 of them and you're like, screw this. Everyone's getting the same email. And you're just frustrated and I don't want to say lazy. It's an inefficient process. But I think the worst part is once I have those emails out, when I go to fire them off, I don't know, again, what order to send them in. Who should I go after first? I don't know the cadence. Should I just bomb everybody, like I said? And then I don't really know who's opened what or what actually happened. It's just this black hole. And so, what we'll walk you through is how we've solved all of these problems. We've taken what would normally take me, I wouldn't even say just a person, me, that would that's done this for decades, like a few weeks to do. We've narrowed it down to something you can do in 10 minutes. So much different. And I'm not trying to hype it up just because it's our product. I'm excited because I built this product, right? Like, I specifically wanted to build this with you, Ed, because I knew we've been banging our head against the wall for so long with this problem. I just wanted it to go away. So that's what we did.
That's the best part. I've thoroughly enjoyed the experience because being on the front lines for Startups.com and sending literally hundreds of emails to investors daily, watching their responses. And then with my past experience, and then you invited me in to help train the AI because of the experience on the front lines every day. So we're solving problems that we need solved for ourselves, for our members. And the benefit of this, we're at an inflection point where it's now possible with these tools that we can actually do this, which is crazy.
Hard to raise capital again, even for Startups.com. This is specifically the tool I build for myself to go do it. Let's put it that way.
So here's what we're going to do, Will. So I'm literally going to walk it through, and then we're just going to send this to the founder, and we're going to let them use it and start to raise because we had selected, been working with this founder for a few months now. You have too, in terms of, hey, let's help you with your pitch deck, get things going. I'd like to make this an educational experience for everyone. So literally it's going to go like this. So I'm going to upload my document right here. And everyone, you can go out and do this on your own. This is the way to do it. So I'm going to check it out, and I'm going to go to our little handy folder here.
So you basically have two options. Ed, if you would click over to Startup Info, you can either answer some basic questions about your fundraise. Like you can say how much you're raising. Tell us a little bit about your startup. You can just free form it. Tell us the industries you think you're in. People get this wrong all the time because they're like, am I B2B? Am I e-commerce? Am I, whatever? And the answer is you're probably a bunch of those. Truth be told, we'll figure it out for you. With all of this, the whole point is that we'll just figure it out for you. Now, there's two ways you can tell us about your business. You can tell us the amount you're raising. You can tell us, that little narrative about your company. And you can refine as you go. Or like Ed just did, you can just upload your pitch deck. And assuming there's data in there that we can pull from, like your raise amount, things like that, we'll actually use our AI, which has been trained on a gazillion decks, on exactly how to process that to match that with the investors you're supposed to talk to.
We have 10,000 investors in our database, and we have hand curated and entered them in there. Well, it's been a data scraping journey for sure.
But also for what it's worth, when people say, how many investors do you have? You can go online right now. You can Google list of investors and get a list of humans, right? Like there's no lack of that stuff out there. It's dog shit. It's a giant waste of time. Otherwise, we would have just uploaded that ourselves and saved us years of effort.
I was going to mention, and now we're accessing 10,000 comes from a list of like 250,000, Will. So we've got a pretty big database right there. So I'm going to click this button and it's going to start working. All right. Now, in the meantime, here's what's going to happen. We are going to take a look at this pitch deck. And I just want to talk about what you see, some quick adjustments as our AI is working in terms of how maybe this pitch deck can be improved. It's going to pull the basic data, but how do we just get it like that last mile in terms of improving this? Let's take a look. It's Cannagenesis, licensing freeze-drying technology in the cannabis space. How are you feeling about the title?
I don't hate it, and that's not being pessimistic. I'm saying I actually know what this company does, and it's bananas. It's incredible. I almost feel like while that's accurate, I'm not sure I would use cannabis space, although I understand what they're using it. I'm not nitpicking. I almost feel like it undersells how important this product is.
So you're saying this could be pushed. Now, the basics are there, but we could push it. Will, if you had a thought, knowing this investor or knowing this startup, where would you go with this? How would you push it just a little bit more?
Boy, Ed, I might just talk about how we're saving or essentially making billions of dollars, right? Saving billions of dollars of inventory in the cannabis space. I mean, folks, when you get to see what this company is doing, it's incredible. And again, the cannabis space is a very polarizing space. And I think it's interesting because a lot of times you'll look at like Y Combinator companies and it's always some, app or something like that. We see everything. We see consumer products, we see services businesses, we see apps, we see everything. And because of that, we get to, build a system, but also provide advice as to what works for lots of people, not one small tiny segment of people that just happen to be like in the top 0.1% of venture funded companies.
Talking with either investors or advisors who have experience in the space. Now I'm going to share my experience. I made a significant investment before coming here, Startups.com, in the cannabis space. It was like the gold rush, back in the day, like cannabis 1.0. Made a significant investment. It was 6 figures.
Yeah.
And it turned out very badly because
the default condition.
The industry wasn't mature enough. And unfortunately, players in cannabis just weren't sophisticated enough. And there's a lot of well-intentioned people, but man, it was tough, like HR, staffing, finding the right partners. But we're starting to see, I would say, a convergence or sort of a new renaissance, if you will, in this space. That's the
Yeah.
reason I find it very interesting. And we're all going to input sort of our experience with this. Take a look at the problem slide. 15,300 cannabis producers still rely on traditional hang drying, resulting in 8 billion in avoidable annual costs and a product with no differentiation from the competition. We have some bullet points. It's inefficient, 2 to 3 weeks to dry, space intensive, high risk, low shelf life, homogeneous, so indistinguishable from others on the shelf. What do you think?
Well, again, with the problem statement, what I'm going to zoom in on as an investor is $8 billion in avoidable annual cost.
Right.
That's incredible. Now, where this starts to get into no differentiation and homogenous, I don't feel like those two statements are congruous. Like I feel like it would be one or the other. Like I'm trying to reduce spoilage versus change the output of the product. You'd have to get further into the deck to understand why that's valuable. All I'm pointing out is these feel like two slightly different paths.
Well, you're tracking with you. This is the exact feedback. In fact, in the beginning, working with this founder. And by the way, everyone, we are going to be just very transparent. It's only our opinion. There are so many other ways this could go. But in the beginning, I said, we need to pick one problem that we're going to solve. The founder was very, not going to say adamant, but very enthusiastic and zealous about the fact that we add another differentiator to what we do by allowing the product to be different on the shelf. But you're seeing immediately, and I think this is good feedback for everybody involved, what happens when you start introducing multiple concepts into your problem.
Yep.
This was an add-on. That differentiation as far as product was an add-on, and it shows, Will.
Not the end of the world. Let's get further into the deck, because I know today we're going to talk more about the investors.
Solution. Our patented technology, a fusion of flash freezing and freeze drying, replaces outdated hang drying, saving operators 5 to 10 million annually, while creating cannabis product that is fresher, smoother, safer, twice the volume and commands 1.5 to 2x price point. Got some bullet points.
That's a mouthful, but if you're right, holy cow.
It's strong.
It's strong. It's strong. When I looked at this deck a while back, this is probably at least a month or so ago. When I looked at this deck a while back, one of the things I remember saying to the founders, like, hey, listen, I want to make sure that when you're talking about the freeze drying or the drying process or the hang process, et cetera, like, I don't personally know anything about this space, right? So when the earlier versions of the deck, a lot of it assumed that I knew what could go wrong in hanging or that it was hung to begin with. Like, I actually had no idea. And so they're doing a good job now of starting to really dial in where the problems are, right? 24-hour dry time versus 2 to 3 weeks, right? In other words, like saying 24-hour dry time without the verse 2 to 3 weeks.
Exactly.
Your audience has no idea why that matters, right? Like, maybe it otherwise dries in 48 hours, right? Well, why is it a big deal? For space efficient, I might say requires, I'm going to make this up, 25% as much space, because I would instantly look at the value of that, so on and so forth. But again, I think that they've done a really nice job of evolving this deck to make it obvious as far as what the value is, even if you didn't really understand what the product did from a first person perspective.
And I can say that with an investor who is familiar with the space, these numbers are definitely going to pull. Like, it's clear enough. And that's just pick your poison. You're either going to have someone with technical knowledge or someone that doesn't have any but might be interested in the space, and you'll adjust your pitch decks. But let's continue. And by the way, everyone, just to explain the methodology, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Will really comment on problem, solution, market size, which are kind of like your holy trinity for your pitch deck. And then we'll quickly whip through everything else. By the way, we've already matched the investors. There's 1,184 investors. That's where we're going to start. We'll get back to this in just a moment, but we'll quickly go through the other parts of the pitch deck and talk about what investors are going to look for and how our AI reads the deck for what the investors are going to look for and how we're matching you. Absolutely. But let's take a look, keep going. Well, in terms of market, of the 15,300 operators in the U.S. who use outdated drying methods, we are focused on 5% mid to large scale cultivators with the highest overhead, labor costs, and regulatory exposure, representing a $3 billion market opportunity. TAM, $100 billion a year total. SAM, legal, accessible, and then SOM, $3 billion per year, mid to large scale.
Here's where I'm throwing a little bit. I saw $8 billion in the problem statement, which is almost always the TAM.
Right.
Ed, what do you think 100 billion represents?
I'm not exactly sure. That's the problem, is I'm not seeing the math.
I'm guessing it's the total amount of consumer sales. Just for folks in the audience, folks who have this deck, an easy way to confirm your TAM, your total addressable market every time, is, and this isn't 100% accurate, but it's like 90. Take the price of your product, how much consumers would spend or your audience would spend with you in 1 year, and multiply it by the most number of people that could possibly buy the product.
Right.
That is your total addressable market. Remember, your total addressable market isn't the number of people that are going to buy from you, but the total number of people that could buy in a given year multiplied by the average price of the product. So let's say Netflix's product sells for $20 and there's a million people that could potentially buy that. And let's say it's $20 a year in this case. Then their TAM is $20 million. That doesn't mean Netflix will make $20 million. It makes everybody in the streaming space collectively make $20 million.
Total addressable market. Let's go back. The problem, there is a connection here. 8 billion, but also 15,300 US cannabis producers. So in your market, everyone, just to explain and show explicitly what Will is talking about, what you would do is you would take the 15,300 and then you would multiply that by however much you were charging, and that's going to be your TAM.
There's always some exceptions. There's some other ways to cut it, but that's always a nice kind of clean way to get started. And at the very least, if an investor questions you and says, well, how do I know that's accurate? And you're like, well, TAMs are never exactly accurate. But the way we look at it, you're talking about how much money is there out there to capture for us. That's how much money there is. It can't include things you don't sell. So if it's $100 billion and part of that is selling cannabis and you don't sell cannabis, it's not part of your market.
On top of which, Will, I'm going to say that this sentence was really in the right direction. It ticks off the boxes that we always talk about. Tell us, who the big market is in whichever order, why you're going after a segment of the market, and explain how many. I want to know how many in that segment. The problem is I got lost as soon as you added this question marks and how it related to this. And so that's kind of what Will has been pointing out. So really, Will, walk us through in how this could be really simplified for everybody else doing their own pitch decks.
There's a couple things that I want to see. First thing I want to see is who you're going after first. And they nailed this, the 5%. But why? Right? Now, he said, okay, they've got the highest overhead, labor costs, and regulatory exposure. Okay, I love that. Do you have like a better way to get to them? Do you have relationships with them? Are they have a history of buying? What I'm looking for are who are the groupies in your model, the people standing in line after the show waiting to talk to you, right? The people who cannot wait. Because if we can't sell to them first, you can't readily identify who they are and why they're going to be the most likely people to buy, then the rest of the TAM, people who like us less, is even less interested.
Right. And if you just almost even taking this out, I'm a big fan of TAM Samsung, but only if it works. And you just did a calculation and you explain how you got to this 3 billion market opportunity, that's going to be good enough. So I definitely think we can make some improvements on there. All right. So then we've got problem, solution, market size. And Will, for just posterity, explain to everyone out there why problem, solution, market size, why are those the big three that we always look at?
You bet. It works in this order. Just like you need to put your investor hat on for a second. Any investor, Ed and I, for example, when we look at thousands of pitch decks, I can tell you within the first 3 slides if any pitch deck is worth its salt. Here's why. The problem. If I don't understand, appreciate, or care about the problem, I actually don't care about the rest of the deck. For example, if I look at the problem statement, I'm like, huh? Ed, you and I have reviewed tons of decks together on this channel. And so we've seen that. We're like, what the hell does this company do? If I don't know what problem you're solving, why would the solution matter? Right? And so at the very least, if we don't do a killer setup of why this problem should really concern you, then when we go to the next slide, the solution, I'm going to be like, okay, well, I don't see why that was a problem to begin with. You're talking about your next gen AI, et cetera, and how awesome it is. But I don't even understand what it was supposed to solve for. I tell people when they pitch me on the phone, I say, okay, pause right there. I'm going to ask you to do it again, but give me the pitch by starting with what your problem is, okay? Don't even tell me what the product does. Tell me what the problem is. And then they open it up. I'm like, okay, there it is. Now you set me up. I really care. I'm chomping at the bit for how this thing's going to be solved. A moment ago, when you just told me what it did, I didn't understand it the way you did. I didn't realize that this was such a big issue. You're saying I'm flash freezing or flash drying cannabis. Who cares, right? Like, why would I care about that? When you say, hey, man, people are losing $8 billion and incurring ungodly numbers of costs in order to make cannabis available, and most of it's kind of crappy by the time they get done with it, I'm going to make all that go away and save $8 billion. Then I want to hear about the solution.
Okay, but hang on. Let's explore this just for a moment. Why do founders do this? Because you are speaking explicitly from an investor standpoint. And so as investors, we are looking for that. We need to know the problem and how severe it is. Is this a costly problem? Is it a problem that needs a vitamin and aspirin, or it really needs like an antibiotic, like people are going to die because investors see dollars. But what goes through the mind of a founder that they're always just pitching the solution first. They totally skip past the problem.
Well, because we already know what the problem is. Like it just doesn't occur to us to tell someone what the problem is when we already know what it is, right?
Yeah.
We're like, it's Uber for cats, and we're like, why is that a problem, right? Oh, well, transportation for cats. I just made that up, but like, you know what I mean? Like, and so the problem statement is the single most important slide. If you nail the problem statement, the investor is chomping at the bit to see the rest of it. Now, you might have gotten the rest of it wrong, and your solution might also suck, but you've done the right thing. Conversely, and this is what we normally say, you have an awesome product, but you bomb the problem statement, so no one cares, right? And you're like, aha! Again, in this order: problem statement, make me care about the problem solution. Solution, make me feel like if people really do have that problem and they buy your stuff, everything's going to get fixed. Like the world is going to be solved. Because if that's true, if your problem is what they say it is, $8 billion, and you solved it, we are going to print money with this thing. Okay, that's how you want me to feel. Now, when you get me to the market size, the last hanging question I have before I'm worried about all the other slides, is this big enough for me to care? Is this a big enough problem for me to care? Generally speaking, and I always tell people this because everyone gets hung up on what's big enough. Generally speaking, if your total addressable market ends with the word billion, you're usually in good enough shape. Now, there's some caveats there, but generally speaking, if you've got $1 billion or bigger market size, it's not that it's too big, too small. It's usually you're over that hurdle. If your market size, your final big market size ends with the word million, it probably is going to be an issue for some people. That's a high level one, but I can tell you, having seen a gazillion decks, that's usually where it ends. So when I get to that market size slide, I'm going to look at that and I'm going to say, man, please tell me this is over $1 billion market opportunity, right? Because there's a lot of things I can solve for. I can't make your market bigger. So if your market isn't big enough, that's the one thing nobody can solve for. Running out of market is by far the biggest issue.
And what's great is, and I like the way that you pointed this out, really, if you're thinking about this, Will, on this one, resulting in $8 billion in avoidable annual costs, that's a pretty darn good market because we're going in and we're saying we can solve for that $8 billion. And if it's an $8 billion problem, an investor thinks, man, what would they pay for the solution? I'm at least going to be making $800 million a year if I do a 10Xer, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay, so let's go through these other slides and just point out a few highlights. Look forward to your comments, Will, if you want to jump in. But how it works, I like how this founder went from before and after. This is old way, this is new way, and compared the process. And we got a nice summary headline sentence here saying that we're patented, we combine it, and in terms of this is how we get to the end result. What do you think?
The designer in me wants to make this less images. Also, the designer in me, I absolutely love illustrations. And I think these are well done. Again, from a creative standpoint, it's well done. I think it's too much to read. And again, I don't think it has to be. I think that we could literally show before and after as one condensed picture of each.
Nice.
Hang drying, and I'm going to basically say hang drying, hangs in a room, temperature controlled, branches picked manually, 10 to 21 days. That's all I really care about, right?
Right. Okay.
Flash frozen, cured, frozen immediately at sub 40 degrees. And like, what is lipolyzed?
I guess it's the technology.
Yeah, okay. But my point is I'd probably make that a bit simpler. I love 84% cost savings, although time doesn't translate to dollars in this particular example. It does indirectly, but I'm saying in this example. Well, I guess it does explain what lyophilization is at the top, a high-tech freezing method used in biotech pharma to preserve perishable materials. Okay, well, okay, that's fair. If I had read them sequentially, I would have known that. Okay, fair enough. I stand corrected.
Great business model. We charge licensees $10,000 to $15,000 equipment and training fee plus 10% royalty on all material processed using our system. Flash frozen cured cannabis, cost less produced, got some benefits there. And then we have a chart.
COGS wholesale retail.
Okay, let me pause you just for a sec, Will.
Yeah.
I want to point out to everybody what Will just did is the perfect expression of why we try and condense your pitch decks so you don't have the investor go, oh, what is that? I'm just going to say, I'm just going to get it out of the way. Well, I just needed the top sentence. That's all I really needed in this.
Well, actually, let's build on that. And by the way, I love this deck and I love this company. So, as we're talking about these things, this isn't me saying bad company. This is me saying, damn, like I love this thing so much. I want to see it. I want to make sure everything gets digested as fast as possible. But I've also been a CFO for startups for 25 years. And I've built 1 million decks like this, and I've digested 1 million decks like this. So when I stop and pause, and it takes me a while to get like cognitively behind it, that's bad. That's kind of my first sensor, my mind detector, Ed.
Exactly.
Like, damn, if I pause, then chances are someone else might as well. The reason we put a single summary sentence at the top of every single slide It is what we always do. It's for exactly this reason. It's because there's a 90% chance, made up that number, that after I read that summary sentence, that what's below it, charts, graphs, pictures, images, whatever, will not get processed the way that you hope they'll get processed. It happens all the time.
It's something that founders do. It's like an insecurity. It's like, oh, they're not going to understand it.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, Will, this founder, he put in the work to make
no
these
doubt,
summary sentences.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's like, oh, don't mess it up by adding more things. Will, you say this all the time. You say every single additional word becomes your enemy in a pitch deck. And this is a perfect expression of that.
Brevity is your friend. Now that's not to say like what's produced there is bad. I'll say this: the fact that they used the single summary sentence at the top is what saved them. Because I don't understand what this chart means, and that's okay. But it doesn't matter because you told me what I need to know at the top.
Everyone, if you've got facts and numbers, all these things, we are giving feedback on a screener introductory deck. Save it for due diligence. They will look at it. It's good that you have them, but don't muddy up your pitch deck. Let's keep going. Go-to-market strategy. With 10 plus years of cultivation experience, broad industry ties, we secure licensees through existing relationships, ROI-backed pilot program, and inbound demand for our tech. Let me pause there for a second, give everybody a preview. Everyone, we are doing part 2 of this with Ryan Rattan, our chief marketing officer, basically because traction is going to help you get to the investors. And so we're going to work with all our founders on how to maximize the traction because that's going to speak the loudest. So I'm not going to belabor this point and throw it on Will. There's going to be something coming up. Will, competition slide, flash frozen curing, delivers faster turnaround, cleaner products, significantly higher margins, outperforming other post-harvest methods, summary sentence, and then we got this chart. What do you think?
Well, it's a complicated chart. However, there's a couple things that I do like that they did. I like the fact that, again, it's got the summary sentence. I like the fact that instead of trying to go after very specific competitors, and I want folks to hear me out on this, sometimes it's not a specific competitor you're going after. It's the industry as a whole. Like there are many competitors, and it doesn't even matter which one it is. Like, for example, Uber going after the entire taxi industry. It doesn't matter if it's Yellow Cab of New York or Yellow Cab of Seattle. The point is, it's an entire industry they're going after, so they can just focus on specifically what the problems are against all taxis, let's say. I would say this would take me a very long time to digest. It's just a complicated chart, and I feel like it could use a pass of brevity. But if you did take the time to invest in it, I think it's well presented.
Right. And once again, summary sense up at the top. You always say, Will, write it from what the customer wants, the user wants. And I think we achieved that here. Here's the team. Great team. Okay. And we got like the little main bullet points. 40 years combined experience, cultivation, business management, and cannabis law. I really like that summary sentence, Will. I think it's good. How would you improve this slide?
It's a bit to digest. It is. And there's some like legit credentials in there. Look at my man, Michael Wexler there.
I know.
By the way, I went to Princeton. By the way, as an EP at Microsoft. Like, by the way, those are legit. I might punch up some logos on some of these because I think logos are a phenomenal way to allow people to digest the credibility that you get to absorb from those companies right away. And again, given the fact that some of these are pretty substantial, investors love logos.
You know what I also love? I love the fact that this team is well-rounded. Like as a YouTuber, I'm like, you got 100,000 followers on a cannabis YouTube channel. Like what's not to love on that? And so overall, I think that we're definitely headed in the right direction. Team is going to speak loudly, and this is a really great team, Will.
Yep, I agree.
Let's continue. We got traction. Okay, 3 million in historical sales across 90 retail locations and licensees in 7 states. Recently, we transitioned to a licensing first model to expand market penetration beyond Washington State. Kind of a state of the product update. Key highlights, got some bullet points. What do you think?
I feel like this is a different product. Space Weed was like a product that they were putting together that has nothing to do with freeze drawing, right?
Right.
How did this get in here?
Well, what they want to do is provide their credibility in terms of, hey, we've been in this industry for the past little while. And so they had a little struggle in terms of how to communicate it. And so they chose words like historical sales, etc. But you kind of caught them with their hand in the cookie jar.
Well, here's what I would say. If the freeze drying method was used to make this product, I would say we've delivered over $3 million of consumer focused product using this method across 90 retail locations. In other words, I would like this makes me think you're introducing a product,
right?
And I don't think the product itself should be the focal point here. I think the process of how you got to $3 million in sales. Again, the freeze drying process, if that was true, would be more contiguous with how the rest of this.
Right. And I just want to make a note for everybody. If you have experience in the industry and you have shown that in dollars and cents, you are de-risking the investment when it comes to an investor saying, you've already got all the relationships. There's
Right.
just better ways to communicate that. And I think that we demonstrate that here, Will. You just kind of said, oh, okay, this doesn't make a lot of sense. So we'll work on that. And then here's the ask: raising 1 million of scale in 10 states over 12 months, raising 480K in recurring revenue within year-over-year growth.
Scaled to 10 states over 12 months, representing 488K in recurring revenue. Doesn't 480K in recurring revenue not sound like a lot of money to you?
It's 480K annual.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like a lot of revenue for me.
Is it MRR or ARR?
That's what I was missing in this slide.
Monthly recurring revenue, MRR, would be phenomenal.
Right.
I'd say it's an important distinction. But on this slide, people kind of misunderstand what this slide's about. They're like, well, they want to know how much I need and where I'm going to spend it. Yes, but honestly, I've seen a million of these. They all look exactly the same. Like, everyone's like, well, here's how we're going to spend the money. I'm like, let me guess, it's all on people and marketing. Actually, I didn't even look at it. Didn't look at the bottom. It's all on people and marketing.
Exactly.
What I want to say is, what matters is, when we spend $1 million of your money, investor person, where will we be at the end of this? At the end of this, where the next investor, which could also be you, is going to be chomping at the bit to give us more money. And that's why the 480K is what I was zeroing in on. What this slide is really about is, what will the money get us to for the next milestone that will make us so exciting to the next round of investors?
Yes. And so generics doesn't really help move the needle, as Will was pointing out. But also, I just point this out, I'm just going to be straightforward. Will, stuff like this, after sitting on that side of the table, irritates me. I'm like, of course, type thing. You don't have to muddy all this stuff up. This is going to be okay if you want to put that in. But this was all great. You don't have to put an angel round or anything like that. Just say we're raising this amount of money for this milestone to get to this inflection point and this value within this time frame. You're good. All right. Well, that was fantastic. So we did a quick overview. Now let's translate that to the investors thing. And Will, I want you to walk us through the mindset, instructions on what the founder should be doing from this point on. I'm going to show the results. And here we go back here. This has been waiting here. It's just been calling out to us, Will, the whole time. So here are the investor matches, right? Will, you look at this and it gives me a description. Is a VC firm, transfer technology, and food sectors. Canagenesis talks about may fund Canagenesis technology appealing due to its potential to reduce waste, improve product quality in the cannabis industry. It's just not, Will. I just have to, I'm elated, with this, right?
Or said differently, what the hell are the chances that you would have found that company? Right? I mean, I'm not saying it's zero. I'm saying now, but scroll up for a second, and if you would, I want to explain what's happening in the background so people understand how we put this together. Here's the way we look at it. There's 250,000 active investors, so to speak, not that active, in the United States and beyond, but mostly the United States. Within that population, a very small number is active or meaningful, right? So when people hear, oh, somebody has 200,000 investors, totally useless, okay? Number one. Number two, the number of people that you should be talking to is like 20, 50, not 5,000, right? That's not how this works. The problem is, and this is exactly what we were trying to solve for, the problem is you don't know which 50 you're supposed to be talking to, right? So you fumble around in lists and Crunchbases and references and things like that, and you sort of guess. Well, if you knew the actual data behind all these companies, which we do, you'd be able to take every single possible investor. And the first thing you'd do is you'd lop off all the ones that aren't even remotely close, okay? And then no matter how many times you emailed them, they would always say no. So the best thing you can do is never talk to those people. The next step, once you've got a smaller list, let's say we've got 1,184. Now that we've got a smaller list, cool. 1,184, but I don't want to reach all of them at once. There are certain ones that are more viable for me than the others. So why don't we take the results and why don't we stack rank every single one of them?
Exactly.
And start with the most likely candidate, like somebody specifically trying to reduce waste in the cannabis industry. And so what we did is we scored and weighted every single possible investor that would be a fit for what you're trying to do. Now, does that mean all of them are going to invest? Of course not, right? All it means is that from a alignment standpoint, these are your best possible chances. Now, how did we do that? What does the alignment actually mean? Let me explain to you kind of some of the special sauce, if you will, okay? Number one, we look at, of course, the amount you're raising. The amount you're raising tells us a lot about what stage investor would make sense for you. $1 million is kind of tricky because it's sometimes pre-seed at a very high number or a seed, which would be pretty typical. But here's what it's not. It's not a Series A venture capital round or a B round. It has nothing to do with private equity and so on and so forth. So all of the people where you would have been like, oh, it's a private equity company that invests in cannabis companies. Awesome. That's literally, you are not at the stage or the requirements for private equity as an entire category. Most people have no idea. So they're out adding those people, trying to contact those people, pitching those people, and it's all the wrong people. Now, next up, when you get to a person that, a firm that you like, the next question is, okay, how many people are there at 10?
Yep, 10 contacts.
Who do you contact? Okay. This, I think, is one of the coolest parts of the platform. Ed, you mentioned earlier when we were talking that we've been helping people raise capital for years. Startups.com, even when we're recording this as in our 14th year. So we've been doing this a long time. We help people raise billions of dollars. With that, we've gotten to see lots and lots of funding campaigns. With that, we've gotten to see who at all of these firms is most likely to answer an email, respond to an email, book a meeting, etc. So we've put all that data anonymously into the system so we can automatically select or recommend the best possible investor for any particular firm. Now, some firms we might not have enough information on, but generally speaking, we'll help you make these decisions as to who the right person might be.
Right. And everything is at a click of a button. So you can continue to filter the results, which I appreciate. So
You get super granular.
right. Yeah. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just go straight USA. I want verified. Verified just means that we have officially found who they are. So we got down to 619 investors.
Now, in that case, though, Ed, they're just not they're not based in the United States, or they're not investing in the United. These are only people that are either based and or investing in the United States.
Exactly.
Now think about, okay, so we just eliminated, call it half or 500, right? Think of how long it would have taken you, and I know this because I've done it a million times. Think of how long it would have taken you. Figure all that out. That took 5 seconds. Just let us do the work for you. Just go focus on the part where you're pitching and raising money. We'll do all this homework for you.
I'm just going to point out a few other things. I want to get to the actual outreach part. But what we can do is as we build this pitch, this creates basically a template email for you. You can redo your file, but now I can go in and fine tune. This is pulled from the pitch deck, but I can fine tune the actual inputs. And so I can go back if I want it. And let's say I just got some good advice from Will in terms of, hey, this is what I should include in the problem statement. Then I can fine tune that and it will continue to change things, the market size, etc. I can update the traction. In this case, we want to, and then the funding ask. And so it's saying, we're in the fundraise, the seed stage, but we can say unsure. And so a lot of ways you can go, or you can just trust the AI to kind of point you in the right direction. And you put your message options in here and just customize the outreach. Now, here's the crazy part. Say I've got the investors here, Will. And so I'm going to Ag Funder, and the results aren't filtered anymore, but I'm going to either save it. I'm going to send the pitch. And here we are in terms of the composing the message. What are we looking at, Will? What are all the features?
Okay, so there's a lot going on here. Let's click compose message, and we're going to compose our message to the button, the CTA. Yeah. Oh, in this case, you haven't connected. We'll get there in a minute. It's an awesome feature. We'll get there in a minute. But let me pause and just explain what the hell just happened. In writing outbound emails to investors, people murder their outbound emails to investors. Let me give you examples of what we see time and time and time again, where people get this horribly wrong. And if you're listening to this, you're watching this, please pay attention to this, because I want to make sure the message you send out is the best message for you. I want to make sure you don't stumble over yourself. Number one, absolutely no one wants a long email. Absolutely no one wants a long email, right?
In fact, 90 seconds tops is what you should be shooting for.
More,
right.
Is when a founder sends me an email, and I want to help them. So it's not like I'm disinterested in helping. They'll send me an email. It'll be 10 pages long. And all I can think to myself is, dude, that's kind of entitled. Right? You're basically saying that if I send you an email, you should plan half your day around it, right? Nobody wants to read a long email. Number two, within that email, there are only a few things that I need to know. And this already takes the most important pieces. Remember, Ed and I haven't done a thing here. All we did was upload that deck. All of this got written by the AI. The AI already knows, because we trained it, where to find things like traction and move those more toward the top, where to find things like the team quality, etc. Read that email. That is a badass email.
Totally.
And you, as the founder, spent 0 seconds writing it.
I wouldn't change anything. I'm hard pressed to find anything I change.
Like, it's funny because I had no idea. I had no idea what was going to come out, and I just don't. Right? It's AI, right? And I read it 3 times while we're sitting here, and I wanted to say like, oh well, I'd change this or I'd change that, and there's no like perfect answer here. Okay, like I'm telling you, this is a damn good email. If you sent it to us to review, you didn't tell us the AI had written it, I'm like, I honestly don't know what to change. And remember, This pulled this from your pitch deck. This is
Yeah.
before you go in and make whatever edits you want. And there's a bunch of tweaks you can do here. Notice a couple things that happen here. I noticed your focus on ag tech and thought our cannabis preservation tech might be of interest. That pulled from what we know Ag Funder is looking to do and what you're looking to do. It's making the connection for you, and it's going to adjust it wherever it's appropriate for every single email. How long that would take you to do?
Let's step back. Best practice. I always, and this is what I did even before we had these tools, I always started every outreach email with why I am contacting you. And if you have a personal connection, like Will Schroeder told me, contact, we're best friends, he donated a kidney, whatever, right? You can say why, but this is the perfect introduction because it sets the investor up to say, all right, at least this founder has researched and is in my wheelhouse. Nothing's more frustrating than if let's say you invest in AI and someone sends you a CPG deck. It just doesn't make sense. And that's being solved right here. And then on top of which, problem right away. It's one sentence. I love the fact, Will, that these are all one sentences each because it's scannable. And you know how many founders just write these long biographies, these paragraphs, like their entire pitch deck might as well have been cut and paste, translated into a novel, and put in the email, and it just doesn't work.
I tell you, even if you think our entire system's bullshit, just use our system to write your damn emails. Trust me, you'll be better off. But okay, let's back up a little bit, Ed. So we got 3 steps. We got looking for your investors. We've got basically building your pitch. And then we've got, of course, sending out your messages. At which point we go to, let's go to, Ed, back up a little bit if you will.
Which one?
Just click on send messages on left-hand nav.
Send messages.
On the left, yeah, you got it.
You got it. Okay.
Here, we're going to have a list of all the people I call it, we added to our cart. So if you go back to match with investors, yeah, there you go.
Right.
Notice we got our saved investors up there. One little button I did because I thought people would dig this is just click on save top 25 matches. So if you want to be even like extra lazy and just like, screw it, I don't want to go through all these, just like give me the top 25 as a place to start. And trust me, the top 25, you send something out and it goes horribly wrong for whatever reason, you sent out the wrong thing or, whatever it is, and it happens. You're going to be so glad you didn't send it out to everybody. And this is one of the many mistakes people make. They send out the first message as if they got everything right. They get it out there and they get either no response or a bad response. And they're like, whoa, I probably wish I hadn't sent it to everybody at once. It happens all the time. But now we've got 25 people like in our basket that we can contact. We can add more. This just happens to be 25. Now let's go back to build your pitch. Like we said, we showed you kind of how to set this up. By default, we will adjust this slightly for each investor. So again, with a specific investor that we know that they're ag tech or that they're cannabis or something like that, we'll add that for you. And again, you can edit all of this stuff, but it does most of the work for you.
Right, this is sort of the base template, which you can play around with, try different versions, suggest edits, etc.
It's really fun. Top right corner, Ed, if you would, go to continue descending. Okay, so now here's everybody we've got in queue. Now, and it's going to give us the ranked score for each of them, et cetera. And if you would just click any of them, Ed. Okay, so here we can compose the message. We can also bulk compose it. I'm not going to get into that now, but just if you would click compose message. And again, it's going to take some time to generate it. Okay, in this case, 2G Ventures focus is on ag tech and food tech. Oh, that's pretty cool. But again, it's really putting all of the emphasis on making sure it's specific. Here's the other thing it did. It referred to Miles Russo. How many people are at S2G Ventures? 6?
Guess 6 contacts.
You're supposed to be contacting Miles Russo. You don't even have to look at it. You don't have to care. Just know that whoever you got default populated, if you want to go in there and check our work, we could be wrong. Probably not, but maybe. You can. But the point is you don't have to because we've already done the work. We've got a research team that does this. We also have a voluminous amount of data that tells us who was the person that was most active in responding. You could go on there and you could go to S2G Ventures and you could reach out to 3 other people and get no response whatsoever because the entire time you had exactly the right investor, but you were contacting the wrong person.
On top of which, we trained our AI, I remember specifically us talking about this, to say, here's what our founders need to know. And we put in parameters so that it strips everything down into what is most relevant for everybody using our system versus all the other bullshit that these investors put on their, website to track the LPs and et cetera. Yep. We distill it down for you.
Now, Ed, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit because, we're in a little tight on time. In the bottom left, you can connect this. This is one of the coolest parts. You connect this to your actual email. So this isn't like a system sending it out per se. Our system is going to send it out for you, but through your Gmail or your work mail. These are going to come as natural messages coming out of your outbox. So you can literally go in there And you can connect each of these so that every time this email goes out, it comes from you. When they hit the reply button, they're not going through us anymore. They're going directly to you. There's no reason we should be involved in that exchange. The other thing we do to save us from ourselves, all of us as founders, we'll send these out. We'll get all your emails out, but we'll send them out like in 15-minute increments to make sure you avoid spam filters, to make sure nothing goes wrong where this looks like an unnatural send. This is going to be perfectly paced for you so that it looks like a very natural, organic send. And not I added 500 VCs that I downloaded off of a LinkedIn link and put them all in the BCC.
Yes, and notice how it already created the drafts for me, and it's going to track what gets open, what gets clicked, and we can just keep going back and forth. So I could load what you're saying. Well, I could load and say click, 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 send, 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 and then it'll put in the queue and it'll send every 15 minutes. I can just walk away, or in the best case scenario, I'm working on traction for my startup, and then I can come back. Well, this is what I love. I can come back and update it, and I don't have to redo everything. It'll just update all the emails for me and help me understand what's going on.
And if you're not sure if it's working, look in your sent folder on your own email. You'll see all the emails coming out from you. Like there's no question they went out because they went from you.
That's it for this one. I'm going to send this. We're going to have a regular ongoing discussion with this, Will. We're going to just talk about best practices. What I'm believing is that we're going to send out founders. They're going to start working with the system, come back with their feedback, their experience. We'll help you fine tune. Sometimes it might be your pitch deck. Sometimes it might be just making a quick adjustment, different strategy. We're here to help all of you use these tools because your success and our success is interlinked. Will, what's your final encouragement for everyone?
This thing costs next to nothing, right? I mean, if you're an existing member, it'll cost you $100, right? If you're not existing member, it costs you $200. That's the cost of literally doing anything else. Like, let's take off the value of your time. This isn't thousands and thousands of dollars. This is so freaking accessible. There's almost no reason not to use it. If you're actually fundraising, investing $100 if you're a member, investing $200 if you're not a member, why wouldn't you, right? And again, we value your money. That's why we've kept this thing low cost, like make sure it's easy to service. But frankly, if you're serious about raising money, run this in parallel to the other things you're going to do. Don't say, I'll do this or I'll do this. Do both. Do as many things as you can. Get as many hooks in the water as you can, so to speak. Hopefully this helps increase your chances significantly. At the very least, teaches you a lot about where to focus.
That's it for us. Stay tuned, subscribe, check for our updates because we're going to constantly be sending out success stories and like ongoing case studies and how people are using this system. We're so thankful for all our founders, all our members. Will, much appreciation to you. See you next week.
See you guys. Thank you.